Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to my first video of the season. It's a bit late, but you know what? Better late than never. You know, we're about 20 games into the season, and I just need to make my first video about Tristan Jarry. I have to. I mean, let's just paint the picture real quick. I'm sure everybody remembers Game 5, double overtime, New York Islanders. I mean, that was just a tough pill to swallow. That's up there with like the Kuznetsov overtime winner. Like that's right up there with just playoff disappointments. And you guys can actually see my reaction to that game. I made videos after every playoff game last year, right? Oh man, it was just a disaster. And the second he made that play, right, turning the puck over, Josh Bailey comes in, scores. Islanders pretty much won the series when Jarry did that. Everybody just gave up on him. It was over for Tristan Jarry, right? He's not good. He's a choker. He can't perform in the playoffs. And now I didn't say those things, but I was really frustrated in him. You know, if the Penguins wanted to move on, I wouldn't have disagreed. Now, let's move on, right, to the offseason. I think most Penguins fans, and I think even maybe management, all wanted that upgrade in net. Now, you had everybody saying, screw Jarry, sucks. Let's go get Marc-Andre Fleury, man. Let's go get anyone else. There was times where I could see where you're coming from. I was more on the let's upgrade the backup position. Let's try and get a veteran backup. I was on that boat. And I know there was a few fans on that boat as well. So it was a very tricky situation, but I applaud Ron Hextall and the management. They stayed patient. I'm sure they were looking for upgrades, but there was nothing there. They stuck with their guy. So now it's the build-up, right? Build up to the season. In my opinion, I think that was the most pressure for Tristan Jarry. And, you know, as a younger goalie, that's really tough mentally. It's in your head, and I'm sure Tristan Jarry used it as motivation. I would. I'm a goalie, right? So if I had a performance like that, I would definitely use it as motivation to just get better. So we get closer to the new season, right? Boom. Malkin's going to be out. Surgery. All right. It's happened before. No Gino to start. He'll be back by November, we were saying. Then boom, get closer. Crosby, wrist surgery, 4 to 6 weeks. All of a sudden, you find yourself with an older team without your two best players. The start of the season was even worse than just Crosby Malkin being out. The Penguins got hit with COVID. They got hit with other injuries. Jake Gensel at one point missed games. Rust, Letang got COVID. Carter got... It was a mess, to be honest with you. So 9 games in, the Penguins actually managed to pull together a 4-3-2 record. For me, that was outstanding. Like, the Penguins' work as a team, those first 10 games was phenomenal considering the circumstances. But for me, the most pressure was on Tristan Jarry because you take what happened last year in the playoffs and all of a sudden you take all these injuries and the COVID and all that stuff. Like Tristan Jarry could have easily had a really bad season to start because everyone was, at one point the entire defensive core was out with either injuries or COVID, right? It could have went bad really quickly. In my opinion, Tristan Jarry to start the season with all those COVID and injuries, he was my MVP and he's my MVP right now as we speak, for the Penguins that is. And talk about consistency, man. Tristan Jarry in his first 10 starts only had a below 900 save percentage once, and it was versus the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he had an above 930 save percentage 6 times out of the 10. For me, it was just a perfect start for Jarry. The whole objective of the first 10 games or so was just survive. You have everyone out, just stay 500, and the Penguins did just that, and Tristan Jarry stole a lot of games, kept them in a lot of games, and stole a ton of points. Then you get to those 2 games, Minnesota and Chicago. Now, the Minnesota game, he didn't have his greatest performance. He wasn't bad. They took 40 shots. He allowed 4 goals. Not terrible, but right, 4 goals, whatever. And that Chicago game, he was great. But both games went to shootout where he wasn't too good in the shootout. Fans right away, oh, Jarry's great in the season so far, but terrible in the shootouts. But the very next game after those 2, Tristan Jarry stops 36 of 38 shots, steals 1 point for the Penguins, brings it into shootout, completely steals the second point, answers the bell, answers all the criticism. And again, it's just a part of being an athlete. And so far, Tristan Jarry has answered every sort of criticism that's been thrown at him in his young career. So to this point in the season, in my opinion, Jarry has had no bad games. Maybe one mediocre one, the one versus Tampa. He allowed 3 goals. It was that 5-1 loss to Tampa, right? The 2 empty netters. Jarry allowed 3. Penguins didn't do much in that game, right? It wasn't his greatest game, but again, only 3 goals against that type of team, an 897 save percentage as your worst game so far. That's not that bad. But then boom, not too long ago, worst game of the season. And you can't even fully blame Jarry, but again, he allowed 6 goals in that 6-1 loss to the Washington Capitals. That right there was his lowest point. And, you know, I feel like it was one bad game, but a lot of fans were disregarding that great regular season he had put up to that point. I saw a lot of fans being like, oh, Penguins still need that upgrade at net. They still need the upgrade in goaltending, all this and that. And it was just one bad game. So what happens next? Tristan Jarry, it's your time. Answer the bell. After all those fans doubted him, Tristan Jarry really just said,
Really? Oh, so that's how you're gonna play it. It became personal with me. I took offense to that. You gonna do this? Okay, fine. That's all I needed. And it became personal with me.
after that worst game of the season, Tristan Jarry not only answered the bell, he kicked down every single bit of criticism that could have come his way, kicked it down, and that's where we find ourselves today. He's currently on that crazy stretch that he's on. In his last 7 games, since that worst game of the season, he's only allowed more than 2 goals once, and it was that 2-1 loss versus Buffalo. And after that 2-1 loss, which at the time was the Penguins' 3rd in a row, things weren't looking good. For the first time in the season, they found themselves below 500. Things could have went really bad from that point. The following 6 games that Jarry has played, 5-0-1 is the Penguins' record. He has stopped 175 out of his last 178 shots. 2 shutouts, a 982 save percentage. 982 save percentage. I mean, I've watched a lot of games. I've been through a lot of seasons, but I really can't remember a stretch of goaltending this good coming from the Penguins. And I needed to make this video because I myself was disrespecting Tristan Jarry in that playoff loss. A lot of fans were disrespecting Tristan Jarry in that loss, and I just needed to acknowledge what he's done so far this season, because if it wasn't for him, the season would be over and done with before it even started. And now this season is his redemption season, and he's not just having an okay to good season. He's operating like the best goalie in the NHL right now with the stretch he's having. So my question to end the video is, do you forgive Tristan Jarry for what he did in the playoffs last year with what he's doing right now in the season? Like, are you fully forgiving him? Not yet, 50-50, or do you want to see what he can fully do in the playoffs again before you can actually forgive him? Please let me know in the comments. And like I said, thank you for watching, and I'll definitely be making more videos now that I broken the ice. I'm definitely gonna make more, so obviously subscribe if you haven't, and thank you so much for watching.